Hey everyone, welcome to the 10 and 2 podcast. I'm Kat.
I'm Catlin.
And we're here every week talking watches, photography, adventure, and exploring the world of horology. How's it going?
What is going on? Oh, dang it. I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. We're not in front of each other, so we don't know who's talking.
I know.
I should have FaceTime, but I look hella scary right now because, like, yeah, I'm in my PJs.
Okay.
Wet hair. Like, I look like a wet dog.
No, I straight up came home from work, threw on like a hoodie and sweatpants, and I'm camped out in my bedroom closet. So it's fine. I feel like we see each other at our worst.
We do. Okay. We definitely have.
Yeah. Us and the airports flying out of San Francisco in the middle of the night have seen us at our worst.
Oof. That was
that airport in Texas, because my shoes were soaked and I had to walk around the airport in socks. That was possibly one of my lowest.
Oh my gosh. Like that trip was so funny. Like,
I just want to travel again. All this to say,
I don't know. That was a pretty miserable flight home. I don't know.
We need to make more memories like that. More
terrible,
good quality memories that we can laugh about later.
I just remember being the flight from San Francisco to Texas was so bumpy, and there was so much turbulence that I was so sick. I was so scared. Like,
you still slept fine. Don't you worry.
Oh, poor Khaled.
It's fine. It's all good. Who needs sleep? That's what it's the
Sleeping
holidays.
pills.
So really, I'm in no sleep mode for sure. So, but how is life?
Life is good. We're just talking about all the watches we have in, which are going to be going back pretty soon. But I've had an awesome time hanging out with so many pieces. I don't even think I've worn my own watches in like a little bit. So it's been fun. It's been so much fun. I'm ready for the holidays and our little break that we're going to have, which if we haven't said it on the podcast, that we're going to take basically the last 2 weeks of the year off and just kind of hang with our families and have a little rest time. And then we'll be back at it after the first of the year. But what about you? What's been going on? Just, I know you've been getting ready for Christmas, all your last minute shopping.
I work in retail, so really it just comes down to work and Amazon shopping. I'm so stressed out. And I feel like, I know it's ridiculous, and I was just talking to a good friend of mine about this earlier today, is that I put way too much pressure on myself as a parent. I feel like to like give the best Christmas, and Tyler doesn't care. He's so practical. He does not care. But I put that pressure on me. So the fact that we're doing our Christmas early because of, just custody schedules. So my Christmas is on Sunday and there's not a single present under my tree.
Oh.
I'm very stressed out right now.
Oof.
I know.
Cutting it close.
Thanks, Kat. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. No, it's fine. I mean, his big gift, he wanted the PlayStation 5.
Yeah.
So that's his main gift. And he's an only child. He's an only grandchild. I won't say he's spoiled because he's a great kid. He gets straight A's. He's the best behaved kid in the world, like, honestly. And I'm strict and he's amazingly well behaved. So I don't ever mind buying him things, whatever, but he just doesn't want anything or, I don't know. So yeah, it's fine. I just need to let it go. But I can't be the only parent who stresses out and
you're not.
Puts way too much pressure for no reason. So
no, you're certainly not. And to be honest, I haven't done really any Christmas shopping myself. I don't really know what's happening. I don't think we're really doing anything with the big family. So my husband's he's on duty to buy his parents a gift, and I'm on duty to buy my mom something and my sister. And other than that, I mean, really, I literally asked Jonathan today. I was like, "Oh, are we doing gifts, or did we decide this?"
Thing?
I don't know. I think we just decided no, and I'm fine with that. I bought a bunch of stuff for myself for Black Friday, and I feel kind of guilty asking for something.
Yeah,
I mean, there's always something to buy, but I feel like I'm actually like pretty okay. We might. I
Yeah.
think we talked about maybe, well, let's just do like something fun under, let's say $50 or something like that. So we'll see. But if not, we also talked about taking maybe a little weekend trip and just after the holidays. And I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But
That would be nice.
yeah. But we have an exciting show today. We're going to review the Fears Brunswick Salmon, which we got in a couple weeks ago now. And we're so excited about this. We were holding off on our thoughts on the last episode because we just didn't want to spoil anything. But I'm excited to finally get this one in for review.
Watch. That's it. The spoiler done. We're over. Also, I'm just kidding because I know Nick is listening to this.
And he's probably going to be the first one listening to this episode as soon as it goes live. Oh man! But well, before we get into our questions that we normally answer, I guess we'll go over some of the specs unless you can think of anything else we need to cover.
No, yeah, I think let's just kind of go over the specs. So, Fears Watches is an independent watch company from the UK, based out of England. If you guys haven't listened to it, we've had Nick on our show, Nicholas Bowman Scargill, who is the 4th managing director of Fears, several times. The first time being last October, and it was a phenomenal conversation with him. I'll link it in the show notes. But it's a family-owned business. It absolutely gorgeous timepieces. So this is their Fears Brunswick. It is a cushion-shaped case, 38 millimeters by 38 millimeters, and it's definitely 100% a dress watch. It's 11, which I feel like is kind of weird to say a cushion-shaped dress watch. Because
you think it is a dress watch? See, I don't know that I consider it a dress watch.
What?
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna get into this later. Then are we looking at the same watch?
We are.
Okay. So it's 11.8 millimeters thick, and then it has the dome sapphire glass. It's powered by an ETA 7001 caliber, which is 40-hour power reserve. Let's see, it has small seconds at 6 o'clock. One of the things that makes this is not their only version of the Brunswick, but this is the first time that they've done the salmon dial. And the salmon dial is actually, it's more of a coppery color. I think did we talk about this on the last podcast?
Yeah, we did.
Okay. Yeah, so it's more of a coppery color, and they achieve that because they blend like 18 karat rose gold and copper, and it just kind of recreates the copper dials that Fears had made in the 40s and 50s. So I love, to know Nicholas and to know Fears watches is to know that history means a lot, and respecting that history means a lot. So I love that there's so much detail to it. This one also has the dials are hand finished with vertical brushing, which makes each one unique. And we'll talk about the dials here in a bit as well. Yeah. And then a new set of numerals called the Edwin numerals, which were created specifically for this watch.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Did I miss anything?
No, I think you covered the basics. 50, I don't know if you said 50-meter water resistance.
Oh, no.
And the price of the watch, which I think is
did not go there.
Well, around $3,500 US dollars. I can't remember.
Well, so it's
pounds.
3,150 pounds, including VAT. Oh, that's where you got the 35. I did the including VAT price.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're probably right then.
Yeah, because we wouldn't, like, if we bought this, we wouldn't have to pay the VAT tax on it, I don't think, right?
Yeah.
Okay. It's somewhere around, somewhere close to that. But yeah, I mean, the story behind the brand is incredible. Again, like Catlin said, go back and listen to it. The brand has been around since 1846. Edwin Fear started the brand and then was handed down to his son, and then it was handed down to his son. Fears actually closed its doors in 1976 and was brought back in 2016 by Nicholas. And he is the great-great-great-grandson of Edwin Fears. And it's just an incredible story. You see these
just
independent...
the story of how he found out his family used to have a watch brand is amazing. Like, just casually dropped over, like, a meal on a Sunday lunch. And I'm just, man.
It is.
Like...
It is very cool. And I think that there's a lot of independent brands that come and go and that are certainly coming onto the scene every single year. And one of the complaints I see a lot of people is like, oh, this brand has no history, blah, blah, blah. Well, you can't really say that about them. They have an incredible amount of history. All
Yeah.
of their watches tie into pieces from the past. And you can see that with the Brunswick, which was actually launched in 2017 and has several iterations now. And I'm excited. It's also my favorite watch from their entire collection. So I'm glad that we got to go hands-on with it. And I'm excited to do our review.
I know, most definitely. Are you ready to get into the review?
I'm ready.
All right, let's go. So, I don't know. I'm in a weird mood tonight. It's fine. This is 10 and 2 After Dark. Everybody wanted another 10 and 2 After Dark. So here you go. This is after like holiday season After Dark. Like extra tired and delusional. But so we go for, if you haven't listened, I say this 1,000 times. If you haven't listened to one of our review episodes before, basically Kat and I just, as watch collectors, first and foremost, when we're looking at a watch, when we're considering purchasing a watch, there are certain questions that we ask ourselves. Everybody has these sorts of questions, right? So this is basically the conversation that we have with ourselves if we're considering buying a watch, which is all opinion based. So kind of getting into it, the first thing, and probably one of the bigger things, is what we like about it. So Kat, what is your favorite feature about the Brunswick Salmon?
So for me, my favorite thing about it is the cushion case. So it's hard because I wanted to say the dial was my favorite thing, and I love the dial, but the case for me is just, it's my favorite aspect about the entire watch, and it's what draws me to the whole Brunswick line. The edges, and there's edges that are brushed, there's edges that are polished on the watch, on the case, on the front and back. And it's just a perfect mixture to me of those polished finishings. And then also the crystal, the domed crystal just lines exactly, it lines up with the bezel, and it doesn't, it's a bubbled and curved glass. However, it doesn't like stick up like you see a lot of these like vintage inspired. I don't know how to explain it very well. I'm sorry, guys. But it doesn't completely just kind of stick up where it's like obtrusive. It's very in line with the watch. It's very seamless, I guess I should say, with the case. And I love this cushiony bubble case. That's what I love so much when I had the Grand Seiko too, is I don't know, there's just something about this case design that really gets to me. And I love the lugs and just the whole shape of it. I'm a huge fan of the Panerai, what is it? The radiometers, and
Yeah.
this is very reminiscent in the case shape of that, and it's smaller and it actually fits my wrist, unlike the Panerais. And yeah, it's just beautiful, and it's my favorite thing about the watch. What about you?
Well, and going back real quick to the sapphire crystal and talking about the fact that it's domed, typically when you have a dome crystal, like you see that little bit of distortion, especially around the minute track, and I don't feel like you have that here. And that's one of my pet peeves about more of a dome shaped crystal, even though this one, and maybe that's part of the it's partly caused by the fact that it sits so flat. It's a very minute dome, I feel like, but you don't have any distortion, which I really appreciate. I'm not a fan of the distorted crystal, like distorted minute tracks and things like that. Like, I think,
yeah, he also, I mean, he has a bezel on it, and a lot of those watches you're talking about almost don't have a bezel, and it's like they let the crystal completely take up the face of the watch, and then you get that distortion. But yeah, like you're right, this dome is just very subtle, but enough to just really add to the watch and the aesthetics of it.
Right, most definitely.
So what's your favorite thing?
So I am really a fan of these numerals. The new Edwin numerals, they're aesthetically they're beautiful just in design. So it's oh man, I dread saying names because I know that I butcher them. So horological typographer Lee Yunrapati, and I know I'm so sorry. Please don't come at me, y'all. I'm so sorry. So he is a very well-known typographer. So he actually researched looking through the Fears archive and pulled inspiration from the archive, but then made them modern. So not only just aesthetically are they very pleasing, but just the way that they're created. So each one is a height of 0.5 millimeter. They're thick. Like you can really, and I don't think that's something that you would expect to see in a more in a more dressy style watch. I feel like this is a little bit dressy. But then on top of that, they're diamond polished and sandblasted. So you have a dual finish on them. Like they're finished just as well as the watch cases. And again, that it's these little details that make this watch so much more unique than what you would expect from not only just independent brands, but from big brands too. Having this dual tone finish, it then is coated in anthracite, which gives it like this really gray color. Y'all know I'm obsessed with all things gray. And hand applied, like just the amount of detail that goes into something as simple as numerals. And then something that, we've talked about Nicholas and Fears watches on the show several times. We're big fans of him as a person, but what he brings to his brand and the pride that he brings to his brand and stuff like this, where you would put this much detail into something so realistically, I want to say it's minute, but it isn't. Like it's the way that you tell time on the watch. Like otherwise get a Movado with no numerals on it.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like it's such an overlooked process by so many brands, but not here. Like I love, and then the contrast against the dial is just absolutely incredible. And I'm a huge fan. That's definitely my favorite feature.
Okay.
So let's get into the nitty gritty of what's your least favorite feature, which is always the hardest part. But I feel like this time it really is like the hardest part.
It is. It's so tough. Well, speaking of numerals, so
no,
I
coming
no.
after them?
I love the numerals. I absolutely adore them. Okay. I think the font is fantastic. What's maybe not my favorite part about the watch, maybe something I would change if I could, would be that so you were talking about those numerals are covered in anthracite. And I actually would like to see, so when you're looking at the watch, and I'm in a low light situation right now, I have just one little lamp on in here. I can make out the numerals, but the hands really are prominent. They stick out. You can very much read the hands in the second hand on the watch because they're that blued material and they're brushed and they pop a little bit more, especially when the dial hits the light. Those blued hands they pop. I would like to see that on the numerals too. I think that the anthracite numerals kind of fade in dark light, and while in the sun they're it's easy to read. In the dark light, it's not so much. And so I think if I had to really, really be nitpicky and just something that I would change, it's not a deal breaker, but that would be something that I would like to see on the watches is that the material used on the numerals and the font too. I just think it'd be a little easier to read. But this is hard because I literally looked this watch over and over and over trying to find something that I didn't like about it. And it's not even that I don't like it. It's just like, okay, well, if I could change one thing, what would I change? And that was the only thing I could come up with.
Yeah.
But it is, I hate this question sometimes because, again,
it makes us be petty sometimes.
It is, but it's something that, you just kind of would ask yourself. And I know I certainly am very, I can be a critique against a lot of watches that I buy personally. So again, it's the way the numerals are now is fantastic. Looks great. I would like it better if they were blued because I think that blued too, the blued hue of those hands on that salmon dial, it is stunning. It is like it's a match made in heaven. It's beautiful. And I could only imagine that if the numerals were all like that too, the dial would just pop. But it's very understated the way it is, and I like that too. So I'm just trying to justify my...
Strongly disagree. Strongly disagree.
All right,
the gray is everything.
What is your least favorite thing about the watch?
All right, I'm equally petty. Because this one is really hard to kind of nitpick because, and maybe it's because like there's so many small details that you and I can appreciate and that fans of people who are a little bit more knowing of Fears can appreciate. Like the hands, for example, mm-hmm. was something that people nitpicks as not being a fan of. But, when you look at them and for us, we know like that's the Fears logo. And I think that it's really unique that he's incorporated that into the hands, plus the amount of work that goes into these hand cut hands. But that's not my nitpick thing. My petty Betty nitpicking, I would love to see an applied logo. I feel like that's kind of missing on this watch. I think that it would really elevate it just a little bit more. I think Applied Logos kind of in general elevate a brand.
Mhm.
But especially like to me, like you have these big numerals that definitely stand up from the dial. So you have I'm trying to base it off of memory and pull up a quick picture. So you have the stamped logo, and again, it's nitpicky because I see where the stamped logo does match like the minute track. So, I feel like it still is balanced and it's fine, but I think that it would really elevate the watch just a little bit more to have an actual Applied logo. Like, I don't know why it is. When we see Applied logos, it just, to me, it seems fancier. You can take any watch and put an Applied logo on it.
Yeah.
And I just maybe I'm just like a sheep, but I just
No.
automatically think it's nicer because it's an Applied logo.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. It's something that I see a lot of watch enthusiasts ask for. I know brands that we love, such as Monta, they've been asked over and over and over again to do an Applied logo. But then you have brands like, Audemars Piguet and several others, and they're not using them. And it's like, well, they don't have to use them. It at the end of the day, Timex puts a Applied logo on their watch. Does it make it 10 times better? It just depends on the watch, I think. I agree with you. Actually, I think it would look great on this watch, especially with the way the numerals are. But also looking at the watch, the Fears logo, and this way on all of his pieces, is very small. He almost doesn't want to make it prominent that it's a Fears. And it's kind of that we talked to H. Moser, and they were saying how, they don't even put their logo on the watches. They want the watch to kind of speak for itself. And so I think that is where, I haven't talked to Nick about it, but I think that's where maybe his mindset is he likes to keep the Fears small and let the watch kind of speak for itself in that way. But anyway, that's a fair point.
I could see that for sure.
How versatile do you think the watch is, and do you think it suits its designated purpose?
Well, so apparently you and I disagree on this one, but I mean, versatility, I'm starting to realize the versatility question is a little bit more difficult because so is this our first, we disagree on the fact that this is a dress watch. I see this as a dress watch. So, and I think that if it is, this would be our first dress watch that we've ever reviewed, correct?
I think so. I think you're right.
I think so. I can't think of another dress watch we've done.
I can't either. I don't know. We've done so many.
We probably have, y'all. all these podcasts blur together after a while. And if we have, my bad. But so the versatility is a little harder, I think, for a dress watch because I'm okay making a sports watch dressy, but I find it a little difficult to make a dress watch kind of sporty. That being said, it's a stunning dress watch. Don't get me wrong. It's absolutely beautiful. So versatility as far as like everyday wear is a little bit more difficult. Versatility as far as like straps, which is another aspect of versatility that you and I both would consider. This is only sold on a leather strap, and you could definitely pair it with a ton of different leather straps. The salmon dial does make it a little bit more difficult for people who are a little like OCD about matching, like I am. But I mean, it's still absolutely incredible, and I think it suits that purpose. It's a dress watch. This is a watch that I could see, wearing in a boardroom. I could see wearing, a business casual. I think it's an absolutely stunning watch, and maybe toss it on a suede leather, and it probably would look pretty dang casual. That's what I should have done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's an incredible piece for what it is as a dress watch. I definitely feel like it suits that. All right, so tell me why you don't think this is a dress watch, and talk to me about versatility.
Yeah, I mean, I think this watch is actually pretty dang versatile. I gave it an 8 out of 10 on the score, but and I mentioned earlier how this reminds me of the Panerais, and I think there's a sportiness to it. And yes, it comes on this incredibly nice calf leather strap, black leather strap, which adds to that dressiness. I agree. But I've actually put this watch on some casual brown leather. I put it on actually some NATO straps as well. And it looks really, really good. Yeah.
You put it on a NATO?
I got it on a NATO right now.
Shut up. I need you to stop everything. I need a picture of this on the NATO strap.
You will get one as soon as we're done recording because I'm afraid it'll like
Okay.
mess it up because I've got you connected.
I would be like stopping recording and I would lose my audio file and all of that. Kat's definitely the responsible one here.
After the show, I promise. But no,
Right.
I think this watch, again, it's, it blurs the line between dressy and casual to me. I think there's something. Okay, so we just had the Hamilton Intramatic in, which is a very similar watch, similar size, salmon dial. To me, that watch is a dress watch. This watch is kind of fun, the way they play with the numerals, and I see a fun aspect to this that I don't see in some of those dressier pieces, and it makes it a lot more casual. I think this is a perfect watch for someone that wants something that, yes, they can dress up, but yes, they can just wear every day with jeans. I like the look. I see a lot of guys doing this where they're in a t-shirt and jeans and they've got a dress watch on, like an IWC or a JLC or something like that.
Look.
I like it. I like that. Like, and it's the same way sometimes when, someone's in a suit and he's wearing a diver. It's kind of that opposite look that you're not really used to, but I really like it. And again, I think that if this watch was completely polished, I might have a different opinion. I will say that the dial, maybe the copper salmon dial makes it a little dressy, but man, it looks really good on the NATO. And the brush finishing that he put on it, he dresses it down a little bit, makes it a little bit more sporty. And
Yeah.
I think it's a great casual, like everyday watch.
Yeah. All right. I have to say it on NATO, but I'm a little leaning your way. I will say, so this is the salmon dial version.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen the blue dial that they do as well, that Fears does as well. And I would wear that thing with blue jeans every damn day, no questions asked. So maybe it is the salmon dial, but we'll see.
Yeah. And I think we associate the salmon dials a lot of times with dressier pieces in general. And we're not used to seeing it on a more casual watch. But I don't know. I look at this watch and I think fun. I don't think really dressy. And that may just be
dressy.
Yeah, I think it's just my preference. But again,
Okay.
I see some sportiness in this thing for sure.
All right, fair enough. All right, so let's do this. Let's talk about value, right?
Yeah.
So this watch retails at what did you say when we did the count? About $3,500 US without VAT.
Mm-hmm.
Now, given that that's going to change daily with currency and exchange rates, but for about $3,500, how do you feel as far as value?
Yeah, this is usually the part of the episode where we kind of compare to other watches and we list a couple. And honestly, I really couldn't find anything to compare it to. I guess I could say the Hamilton we had in, but also, they're just at two totally different price points of the Hamilton. I think, I want to say it's like around $900, maybe $700, $800, $900, somewhere around that range. And there's a big quality difference, and you can feel it in your hands, and you can see it on the watches itself. Yeah, the dials might be both salmon, but they're both just completely different in how they wear and everything else. And I had a really hard time finding other pieces that were like this. And I think of maybe you can compare it to a couple of the Nomos models in the similar styling and fashion that this watch is in, and price range, obviously. But it's just not one that you can compare with a lot of other watches. It's so unique, and there's nothing else out there like it, which is a benefit in my opinion. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. So we talked about this when we did the Moser review, and that independence, it's a little more difficult to do this with, right? Because they're not like anything else on the market. So, and you get the comments, oh, for $3,500 I could buy a Black Bay. Well, the same is true, buying a Black Bay for $3,500 I could buy 5 of some other watch, or one of this watch. It's all perspective, and it's what people want. If you're looking for a Black Bay, you're probably not considering this watch as well. This is one of those watches that it's not going to be one of those watches that's going to be like the first in your collection, right? This is the watch that you've been a watch collector for a little while. You have 1 or 2 pieces, and then you want something different. You want something that you can't see in a store. You want something that not everybody on Instagram, not everybody at the watch meetup, not everybody has. So you look for something independent. And this gets you, typically when we think independent watch brands, they're expensive, right? You think Moser, you think MB&F, you think Zorn, so many of the times we think of independence as being very expensive and kind of unattainable, but this is an attainable independent brand doing something totally different in a design that's not on the market. So I do feel like it's worth that price, because you can't really put a price on something like that.
Yeah.
It's all the minor details. It's like what we've talked about with Manta. And I think that these smaller independent brands, they have so much more to prove. So they're packing as much bang for their buck as they possibly can in a relatively inexpensive package. When you look at the details in the finishing, the details on the hands, the details in, just the packaging alone, packaging or unboxing a Fears watch is an experience. And Kat and I know that from personal experiences. We each have a Fears timepiece. You don't get that with some high-end Swiss brands where they're mass-produced cookie cutter watches. And there's nothing against that. I own several of those watches. But something like this is just, it's different. It's unique.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I say it's very much so worth its price.
Good points for sure. And that kind of brings us into our last question, which is just what your overall thought was, and if this is something that would get regular wear in your collection.
I mean, I think it definitely would. I say it's a dress watch. That being, I like to wear dress watches with blue jeans anyways. I would definitely want to change the strap up, because the strap for me is a little formal, but we've said it 1,000 times on the podcast. You buy a watch for the head. You don't buy a watch for the strap of it. The dial on this, I don't think we really talked about it in too much detail. Each dial is hand finished. Like the brushing on every single dial is done by hand.
Mm-hmm.
So every dial looks unique. And when you play with this dial in the light, it's incredible. Absolutely stunning. There's so many little details. I love for Nicholas that he stamped the word England at the 6 o'clock subdial on these watches, because he's so proud of his family's history and Fears' history, which was, founded in England. Some parts are made in England, but then they're hand built in England. And I feel like it's such a feather in his cap to be able to hold his head up high and say that and advertise that on his watches. So he did such a phenomenal job on this watch, and I'm excited to see what comes next. He has so much, going for him, and just I think it's only been 5 years since he restarted the brand.
Mm-hmm.
Something. Yeah. So, I mean, he's put out some amazing pieces, and I'm excited to see what comes next. But this is definitely a watch that I would 100% have in my collection. And if you guys aren't a fan of the salmon, take a look at the other 2 dial colors. There's an incredible blue dial, and then there's just a very traditional, very beautiful, handsome white dial as well.
Yeah.
But Kat, what do you think?
Yeah, I think for me, this would be a watch I would wear because it is so different than anything else I have. It's hard for me because, I love sport watches. I love divers so much, and I always struggle with the watches in my collection that aren't, because a lot of times they're not long term for me. It'd be hard to say going into it if this would be a keeper for a long period of time. I really do love it, and I think for me personally, if I was looking at this watch versus the white dial, which I thought for a long time the white dial was the one for me out of the Brunswick collection, and I gotta say I think the salmon dial is almost less dressy than the white. I don't know. But I really love it. I love the font. I love the numerals. I think if Nicholas ever put loom on this watch, I would just die over it. I would get it right away because I think I'm just a sucker for that, and it would add to the sportiness of the watch. 50-meter water resistance is not a problem for me. I like that. That's kind of like my bare minimum on a watch. So I'm glad to see that he did that there. And I think I would definitely wear it. I think there's a lot of occasions. I wore this watch for a couple days while we had it on just the leather strap that he had that came with it. And I was very surprised how much I like that. And maybe because I'm just not used to having something on that dressier side of the collection, I loved it. And, tastes change over time. And maybe I'm leaning more towards that now. But yeah, I was very impressed, and I just love this watch. I love the case; it's just phenomenal. He really did a great job, and this watch. Nicholas has been around, and Fears has been around for several years now. But I feel like this year was such a big year for him, and this watch this launch. There's an actual wait list for this piece right now. I mean, if you want one, you have to go to their website and you have to fill out a contact information, and he'll get you on the list. But I think, wow, I'm happy for him. I'm happy for the company, and they're doing so well. And this watch was so well received, and makes me really happy to see, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that wraps us up.
Wraps it up.
Yeah.
This whole not seeing each other.
I know, it's tough. It's a struggle.
Oh man. All right. Well, a huge thank you to Nicholas over from Fears Watches for sending this in for us to check out.
Yes.
We were super excited to get this in. Definitely very, very thankful. Be sure, head over to our website, www.tennand2.com. We'll have pictures of everything, some detailed shots of the watch, links to the Fears Watches website, all that fun stuff. And be sure you're following us along over on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at 10 and 2 Media. And that is all, y'all.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.